Hello and welcome back to 365 Days with mxmtoon. I'm Maia, a singer, songwriter, video maker, Oakland native, and an absolute politics nerd. I'm also a big fan of history. I love untold stories, gross facts, hidden secrets, anything weird, dark, and funky from the past. So each day, I'm going to share a few of my favorite deep cuts with you. So let's take a look at today's stories.
It's 365 with mxmtoon. New facts every day, so don't leave too soon. I'm gonna teach you stuff, no it won't be tough. Gonna go a year till you've had enough. It's 365 mxmtoon.
On October 26, 2001, then President George W. Bush signed the Patriot Act into law. Officially, the Patriot Act was passed as a way to improve the U.S. law enforcement's ability to detect terrorism. While this sounds good in theory, in practice, it had a questionable impact on the privacy of many Americans. Naming it the Patriot Act wasn't actually about the concept of patriots. One might argue that the title had more to do with convincing people that the act was in Americans' interests than being a patriot. The actual title is the Uniting and Strengthening America by providing appropriate tools required to intercept and obstruct terrorism. How long do you think it took for them to come up with that name and make it fit a patriotic word like patriot? The act wasn't just a simple piece of paper. It was over 300 pages long. Sounds more like a patriot book, but whatever. The Patriot Act was passed within just 2 months of the September 11th attacks on the Twin Towers. Congress was panicked about making Americans feel secure, so they hastily put together the 300-page act and got it ready to go. If you're wondering how they got it done so fast, much of the act was already written, or at least researched. Most of what was in the Patriot Act had been on a years-long wish list from law enforcement of ways to infiltrate citizens' private lives. It had always been rejected by Congress, but the fervor around 9/11 meant that it ended up being passed without a problem. In the Senate, the act went to the floor without any debate, discussion, or hearings. Many senators didn't even have a chance to read the document, which again was 300 pages long. Furthermore, the Bush administration bullied senators into voting for the bill, saying they'd be blamed for more terrorist attacks if it wasn't passed straight away. Broadly speaking, the Patriot Act claimed to improve Homeland Security. It looked at the tools used against drug dealers and organized crime and expanded their use to other citizens. It allowed law enforcement to use techniques like wiretapping and surveillance against people they suspected of terrorism. It enabled the government to use improved tracking techniques. It had some very specific applications. Keep in mind, it was 300 pages long, like allowing delayed notifications on search warrants so that suspected persons didn't know they were being accused of crime. It let federal agents obtain bank records and business records and let government agencies share more information between themselves than was previously allowed. Punishments got worse, and it made it so that search warrants could be obtained in any area where terrorist activity was suspected, regardless of the actual location of the suspected terrorism. That's already a lot of info, but there was so much more where that came from. Even though Congress tried to pass it off like the changes weren't a big deal, they were sweeping in scope and changed how the government regarded privacy and profiling for years to come. Many of these changes were going to expire in 2005. But President Bush renewed the bill, law, act in 2006, despite public outcries of privacy concerns. All of this sounds totally okay in theory, but in practice, it enabled racism against Muslim Americans, and civil rights groups said that it enabled spying on Americans without due process and searching their homes without their consent. There's still debate today whether or not the Patriot Act actually prevented any terrorism. On one hand, the Justice Department admitted that FBI agents can't pick out any major cases that they solved or made progress on due to the loosened restrictions on spying. On the other hand, of course, we'll never know what might have been. In 2004, then FBI Director Robert Mueller, heard his name before, said that he believed the Patriot Act had proved extraordinarily beneficial against the war on terrorism and had changed the way the FBI does business. Now, let's fast forward a bit. For almost 15 years, no one but the FBI had any real information about how the Patriot Act was being interpreted. That changed when Edward Snowden, a former subcontractor for the CIA, leaked a wide variety of classified information from the NSA. He flew to Hong Kong when his government contracts ended and revealed his documents to 3 journalists who wrote about the findings for The Guardian, The Washington Post, and The New York Times. The documents confirmed the fears of many who were afraid of the reach of the Patriot Act. Every day, the government collected phone records, numbers dialed and received, dates and times of calls, and the call's duration for millions of Americans. Snowden's documents also revealed that the government could look at people's emails, and they did. People were naturally outraged. Snowden himself sought asylum in Russia, where he's been ever since. Today, he works with the Freedom of the Press Foundation to protect journalists who handle sensitive information. Just recently, on September 2nd, the U.S. Court of Appeals ruled that the intelligence program Snowden exposed was illegal, and that the officials involved lied while defending it in the aftermath. We've got a little more levity with our music fact of the day. In 2018, 50 Cent decided to play a prank on a fellow rapper. He went onto old Groupon.com and purchased 200 tickets for a Ja Rule concert in the first few rows, with an epic, and or rude, depending on how you look at it, plan to leave the seats all empty. He spent $3,000 total on the prank, which sounds like a lot, but probably isn't much to 50 Cent. This was just the latest prank in a long feud between the two rappers who have been at each other's throats since the 90s. Ja Rule responded by tweeting, "I get under 50 Cent's skin." I love it. Continuing the social media schemes, 50 Cent posted a photo of a nearly empty arena with himself shrugging photoshopped into the first row. I love this prank, but I love the social media jabs more. Anyone want to get into a Twitter war? And now for our final segment of the day, I'm going to be going into my own photo archives to see what I was up to on an October 26th in my life. On October 26, 2016, at the time, I was very into the application Vine, of which you may be familiar with. I had around 2,000 followers. I thought that would be the peak of my internet existence. I was very wrong, unfortunately so. Fortunately so, rather. And I got a comment on October 26, 2016 that says, "Go out with me, I'll give you money." And I responded with, "Tempting offer, but I'll have to say no." And that is my memory of the day for you. I'm so sorry. That is all you get. That's all for today's episode. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll see you tomorrow. If you please subscribe wherever you listen to the podcast and follow at 365 Days mxmtoon on your preferred social media platforms. Hope you enjoyed this one, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.
It's 365 with mxmtoon. New facts every day, so don't leave too soon. I'm gonna teach you stuff, no it won't be tough. Gonna go a year till you've had enough. It's 360